What's up, Rockstars, and welcome to my review of Berserk, the board game. This is by Monolith. It is on GameFound now at the time of posting this video. Link in the description below. This one is a doozy. It's based off of Berserk, which is a manga. It's an anime. It is a very popular series. It has been around for decades, still going strong and still beloved. Is the board game all it's cracked up to be? Is it a good board game outside of the IP? Does it use the IP well? And what are my thoughts on it? I'm going to share that all right now. Alright, so we got to get some things out of the way before I dive into this, and I will say that this is, of course, a prototype. Now, this is a very well-made prototype. Monolith does this thing where they pretty much are done making the game by the time they come to GameFound. That way they have a quicker turnaround time to you. It's a lot safer of a back. They put a little bit more risk, so it's not just risky on the backers. So you kind of, what you see is what you get, and what that means is the rule book was not some like Word document I had to sift through where it's half in English. That actually does happen sometimes. This was pretty much a complete rule book to the point where it had stuff that isn't in this prototype, right? It's all the thematic, it looks good, it's great. You can probably check a link, I imagine they link down to it in the description below on their GameFound page. If not though, trust me, it was actually pretty well done. Very easy read. This was easily taught, especially once we did a round. At that point, we were playing just fine. But just note that obviously stuff still could change in a minor level, but for the most part, they're like ready to produce this. So I feel pretty safe sharing my thoughts with this. That being said, this prototype is a very small snippet of a very big game, okay? So there was a scenario that I got to kind of do the intro and then go through it and then do the events, and it used a lot of the mechanics. About halfway through the campaign, I was able to upgrade my cards and add cards to them and stuff like that. We'll talk about all of that in a little bit, but just to let you know, this is not me playing through an entire huge campaign, plus building factions together, plus solo that they have as well, though I'll talk about solo viability without that. Either way, just know there's still a lot more to this. Now, I'm going to now talk about the kind of game mechanics and then go quickly from that to opinions. So I won't spend a lot of time. They have some really good gifts and a breakdown of that. And like I said, they probably have a rule book as well. I am not filming to like teach you the intricacies of a card or anything like that, right? This is just a review. So, but I'll tell you generally how the mechanics work so you kind of get a gist of the gameplay. Now, with that being said, I also want to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Into the AM. Into the AM makes fantastic apparel like this shirt, like this jacket. This is their like Sierra jacket. I wear this all the time. I've had this for over a year now. Love it. I wear it to work. I wear it out when I'm like gardening. I love this. Even just if I'm chilly inside, it's getting fall season. We're going to go to the pumpkin patch. Guaranteed I'm going to be wearing this. I love it. And it is backed by popular demand. They normally, Into the AM, they sell stuff and then eventually it goes out, right? And they're constantly cycling through and adding new stuff. They're doing that, but they are bringing back some things that have done really well. Sierra jacket, easily recommended. It's amazing. Feel free to check it out in the link in the description below and save yourself an additional 10% with my coupon discount code down there. That 10% is on top of any sales, which they are doing amazing sales right now. So please check them out, support the channel, get some cool stuff from Into the AM. What's to lose there? Oh, by the way, all their art, actually real person art. I have met with their artist and helped design a shirt with them. They actually draw their stuff and it's amazing. They have a great artist there, or a team of artists that work on all their stuff, and it is all human made and again looks amazing. Okay, now let's talk about this game. Okay, so, oh, by the way, I left this pretty much exactly how we left it, okay? So this is like our game, if that makes sense. There's a little, like, I added some stuff here because I'm going to talk about it. There's some stuff left aside. You know, when you're playing a board game, you're not focused on, like, what film's the best? This is just, like, how it ended up. So this is on Geek and Son Megan medium. I don't think it's a large, if I remember correctly. It's been so long now. I've had this for years. Great table, by the way. Fits totally fine, right? So there are 3 people here. We got stuff spread around. I could easily fit the other 2 here, I think, quite easily. There's still some space there. Plenty of space there. There's a table size here. If we played on top of the table, there'd be extra room, okay? So I'm not too concerned about that. How the game plays. You have a round token, right? Each round is pretty much a hero turn. and then there's an enemy turn, and then there's like an event phase thing, and then there's like the upkeep thing where you kind of reset everything. Okay, there you go. You know how to play. No, I'm kidding. You have a game board, right, that has your health. That if it goes 0, you're dead. It has a fatigue that I'll explain that in a little bit. If it goes to KO, you're dead. Okay. Now the fatigue is based off the cards you play. We'll get into that in a little bit. And then you also have a special ability. I'll definitely be talking about that. And that's really it for your game board. Now again, this is a prototype. I know in the main one, for instance, you have upgraded boards. We actually did have a character upgrade during the event, the scenario that we played. Again, I'll explain that a little bit. Okay, so you're going around and you have your cards here, right? And some are, I have them in the little holders here, but you have your set of cards and you're picking 1, 2, or 3 cards. So you can pick just 1, 2, or 3. If you play just 1 card, you gain 0 fatigue. If you play 2 cards, you gain 2 fatigue. And if you play 3 cards, you gain 4 fatigue. So it's very much in line with a lot of the Monolith games where there's a little bit of push and pull where you can be really strong, but then you also might be a little weak. Now, that's also doubled up in the cards themselves because you're determining based off the cards you play, the dice that you have to attack with, your movement, and your defense. So maybe you're going really big in attack, but it's low in defense. So FYI, when enemies are attacking, maybe you kind of shouldn't have gone too hard, right? Again, I can directly see similarities from that from like my favorites like Conan, for instance, where you can have a big offense, but it's kind of a risk reward thing, right? Now they also have the special ability, and only the top card usually, I'll get more into that, is affected. So you're having to choose, between this and this. Same stats, but a different ability. So you have to pick your top one too. And obviously the one you're doing there means you're not doing the other ones. This sort of like, oh, I want to do all 3 of these things. They're all amazing. Which one do I want to do the most? And I have to give up the other ones, but I still gain some benefit from them. It reminds me of like Oko Chronicles and stuff like that. So I don't know how many games you've played or what games you have or haven't. I've played a lot of niche games, but I'm seeing a lot of these things that I like right in here. So that's really cool. Okay, so you're picking cards and then you go around your turn. Open turn system, though, once you start your turn, you are playing your turn, right? So, but I could go first, or Guts could go first, or anybody can go first and the second and the third or whatever, right? You also have allies. All my allies are dead. They were these little guys. Again, we'll talk about that you can activate. What you do is you can obviously move, you can attack, you can, do like your ability perhaps. And then there's also the interaction, right? Where you could interact with like a token or something. There was a token here that we used, for instance. And you can interrupt your movement as well. So you can move and then attack and then finish your movement, or move, interact, and then move some more, or attack and then move. And so it's pretty free form. It's a little structured though. It's not too bad. I think that's pretty neat. Then the enemies go, and the enemies go based off of who's closest to a person, right, who hasn't activated. So if they haven't activated and they're the closest to the person of the people who haven't activated, they activate first, right? If there's a tie, you pick, right? So again, very intuitive on who's activating and when and what that looks like. So that's also really good, right? Now, when you're attacking or they're attacking, right, you roll your dice based off the colors and you're counting pips, and that's really it. And it goes against their shields or defense. It's an automatic thing for the defense. You don't have to like roll for defense or anything like that. There are buffs depending on where you're around, or somebody else can give you tokens and rerolls, or you can get them from other things. So there's some dice manipulation lightly in there, again, like with the rerolls and stuff. Also, the orange die has a bleed and the gray die has a stun. And really, that's kind of it. There's not a whole lot of, there's other mechanics for specific characters. We'll get into that. But as far as like combat and all that goes around, it's very nuanced. Again, I'll talk about that in my opinion, but it's not mechanically crunchy in the sense that there's like, 80 different mechanics at play at any given time, right? Okay, so then from that, you go into the event phase, right? Where, depending on what an event's doing or triggered or whatever, you flip those, or do what you need to do with that. And then of course you refresh where you get your cards back. Now, one thing I did not say, I don't even know. Yeah, okay. So right here, like Miniature Bomb, for instance, has a little electric bolt. They call that an instant card. I don't know why it's called instant card. Really, it means it's a one-time use card. So you use it, and then afterwards, it goes away. You gain back all your other cards, right? Now, he has something called reloading where he gets them back. Again, we'll talk a little bit about different characters and how they play, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Like, seriously, guys, I just kind of explained the whole game to you. Now, obviously, when you're playing, there's little things that come up, right? But that's really it. So I guess with that, let's go and talk about opinion. Okay, so I mentioned the activation order. Why don't we start there? We're going to start somewhere. The activation order of the enemies I actually really, really like for two reasons. First of all, I think it's just intuitive. Closest that hasn't been activated yet, tie, you pick. That's it. You're not doing some weird clockwise thing. I've played games where they're doing that. There's not something I have to fuss around like, oh, this activates and this activates and this activates, and we move stuff around and then we're in the middle of that and all that. No, it's literally you have them there. It's wherever makes sense for the state of the game. And I really appreciate that. So maybe, Zod attacks first. And then the next time it's actually Grunbeld and he's attacking first. And then the next time it's, somebody else. It doesn't matter. The point is that I like how it's dynamic. It is not always this person, this person, this person. It's also not arbitrary, and it's also not convoluted in the, whoever's closest with the most health, that has the highest speed rating, and no. It's just, hey, can they just attack the person? They're right next to the person. They're just going to smack them first. The other guy's going to run later, right? You're updating kind of the game state anyway, so it doesn't it's not like thematically it doesn't make sense that it's all happening at the same time, right? But mechanically, it just kind of works with essentially 3 rules, right? And not activated, closest, pick if it's tied. That's it. And that speaks to a lot of the rest of the games. That's why I kind of wanted to start with that. I know it's a weird thing to start with enemy activation, but hopefully that kind of sets the tone for how a lot of this game plays. It's a very smooth game. We didn't have a lot of questions. If we counted, and I've been tempted to count this in my reviews, I don't, because when I play, just as an aside, and if you're new, welcome, by the way, I love playing games just like this. Like, the cooler it is, the better, and it's hard to get cooler than Berserk. One of the things I really... okay. So when I play a board game, I'm not trying to review it. And what I mean by that is I feel like a lot of times movie critics, any kind of critic does this, right? Where part of being a critic is being able to define why you like something or don't like something. A lot of people can feel like, I didn't really like that, but not really pinpoint, and this is exactly why, and this is what I would do different, right? So that's part of being a critic. Another part, though, is for a lot of people, like taking extensive notes. And I write down notes after a game session quite often. We'll play again sometimes. I'll do exercise. I'll do whatever I need to do to get my thoughts in order, right? And then I kind of group them and craft them. But when I first sit down to play, I just want to play a game and have fun, because that's what you're trying to do as a consumer, right? And so when I get a prototype like this, or I'm reviewing any game, that's what I'm there for. If I show up with a pencil pad and every little note I'm talking about, oh, I didn't like that, that can set the whole mood for how a game feels, right? How a game feels can even depend on who you're playing with. Your game group matters, nonetheless, your attitude. And if you're busy, have a pros and cons list throughout the whole game, that's not like a natural conversation that people are having, I think it sets you up for being a little disassociated with a consumer experience. So hopefully that makes sense. But if I did write it down, right, and maybe afterwards I'm kind of curious how often I pulled up the rule book, right? So I'm sure you've all been there, right? You're playing the game, a question comes up, oh, hey, can I activate this skill now? I don't remember. And then you're open up the rule book, so the game's paused. Typically, I'm the kind of person that's going to make a house rule, look it up later, because I don't want the game flow to stop, right? It depends on how much it matters, but also there are no board game police that are going to arrest me. As long as it's a co-op game like this in particular, I don't know, do whatever's fun, right? House rule it for a moment while I go find out. It doesn't matter. We can change your health later or add another die later or whatever, right? It's fine. So that's typically what I do. But looking up something in the rule book tells me one thing. Either I didn't remember it, I struggled to learn it, or there's a lot to remember and it just fell out, right? So either the rule book's kind of bad, but I told you the rule book's actually pretty good in this one. I had no issue with the rule book. There was a few things where I maybe would have either worded something slightly differently or presented ideas in a slightly different order, but that's really it. Either way, I think we did twice, right? But if I'm doing that 5-10 times in a game session, just trying to play the game, to me, that says a lot about a game. This one, very, very easy. So it's because of rules like that. Okay, I've exhausted that explanation to death. You got some background. Welcome to the channel. This is going to get a little involved in my thoughts. So, all right, so that's one of them. All right, the other major factor in this game, of probably the 3 pillars maybe, is the cards. And I must say, before I even go to playing the cards, picking upgrades and even picking your choice of cards here, right? Which 3 or 1 or 2 of these with the one on top that I want with the stats and the dice and all that is so hard to pick. And I love it. I love the idea of a this, but then not that kind of mechanic. Like I said, I've liked it in stuff like Oko Chronicles. I like it here. There's a lot of card games that do that, and I really appreciate that. The fact that I get cool miniatures with it and kind of a campaign and a narrative and a theme, even better, right? But yeah, seriously. So you have essentially, I do have an upgrade here. So see here, there's a 4, an 8, and a 1B. So in other words, I started this campaign, let's say, with the 1. Right? And there are some where you add cards. Maybe you don't have all the way through 8 and then you build up to 8, right? But then you can also upgrade them, and you can upgrade them with an A or a B. So you lose the 1 and you get A, B. Now the A and B are pretty much strictly better. There's going to be a few nuances here, but for the most part, there's one that plays just like it, but better. And then there's one that skews it a little bit or changes it a little bit. I'll give you an example actually with this. Okay, because this is a fun mechanic anyway, and it goes to card choice. Here is 1A, right? This is for Shirke, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Either way, she is an astral traveler, right? Very cool. Essentially, her whole mechanic, I'll explain this in a little bit, is to have an astral pool of these little cubes that you can buff your abilities in, okay? Now, when that happens, you only gain them through this card. It says add 1 to your astral pool. And that was pretty much it. Now, there were 2 upgrades I could pick, right? And the dice could change, the movement could change, the defense could change, and the text could change. Some of them can change, right? But there'll be something different, at least something different. This one has it to where apply the effect of the action card placed directly under this one. The other one had it where I believe where I was spawning 2 and it had better stats. So I could either have a stronger play through stats and gain 2 at a time instead of 1, or, and this is why I liked this one, if I'm doing this, I can now gain this essentially for free because I get to activate the card underneath. It essentially swaps like that after activation. And that is unique because I'm able to essentially double dip on the skills. So I'm able to get that one more consistently and still do something really cool, like a thought transference or a wheel of fire or a circle of destruction or healing or whatever it is, right? That is really, really fun. I love having to pick between these. And this one, I kind of don't have to pick, right? Which is kind of nice. And this one, I really did, right? So here, and this is literally like our last hand, right? Here's Gut Style. Gut Style only active, it says, if Guts has already activated and is within range of 3, I get to add 2 dice of my choice from his attack pool to mine. So he becomes much stronger. Again, I'll talk about the characters and differences in a moment. But I could have easily have done this, where I do a display of skill. Before rolling your attack die pool, choose a number and then double the successes of each die showing that number of success equal to that number of this attack. So in other words, like I could pick 3 and now every 3 I rolled, I'd now double it. Or I could pick 1, maybe play a little safe and then every 1. Right, and then, or maybe I could have done the double or nothing, right, or whatever the other one is. So having to pick that, it's just such a, like you're looking at that and you're like, what combination of this with the game state, with the other people playing can we do? And there's a lot of that kind of stuff, like, oh hey, I can heal you, or I can give you some re-rolls. So I'm gonna activate first, so then you have the re-rolls, but then you need to activate because I'm gonna choose Gut Style, which means you need to activate first for me to benefit from it. And I'm gonna get 2 your dice. So if you could include that card that adds the other black die, heck yeah, I'm adding 2 of those, right? Like that sort of stuff happens all the time, right? You're trying to do that. I'll talk more about the game state and positioning in a moment, but suffice it to say, picking cards, whether it's through upgrade, whether it's through the gameplay, is a highlight of this game. It is so fun. It's very simple. You pick 1, 2, or 3 cards. You pick the one on top. That's it. But the nuance around it is just such a fun little mind game to play. Again, I like it a lot. Plus, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but this one I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dice that I got to roll, right? So you end up rolling a lot of dice too, which of course is always really, really fun. Okay, now before I forget, I'm going to talk about the positioning a little bit. So The positioning in here matters for a lot of different things. I already told you it actually affects activation, which means you can kind of try and plan the next round, or at least the enemy phase, based on that, right? Additionally, a lot of the enemies have buffs based off of position. For instance, some of the guys are stronger near others, or some of them, like for instance, this had Zod and Grunbeld, right? And they kind of play almost opposite each other. For instance, Zod says if he's within range 2 of more than one hero ally, so if he gets within range of 2 of at least 2 heroes and allies, then he targets all heroes and allies within range 2 for his attack. So he just does area attacks then, right? And he doubles his defense. Okay. Whereas Grunbeld here says if Grunbeld is within range 2 of exactly one hero. So if he's only buffed on a 1 versus 1, so you want to go all in on him through a whole bunch of guys so he doesn't get buffed. The other guy, you want just all of them to put him down, right? So it's very interesting how that works, right? And then of course some other guys gain buffs based off if they're close or not, right? So between the movement, which again you can attack and move, right? So there's a lot of movement you get to play around with. Most of your cards are adding at least 1 movement point, right? So the fact that you can attack and move, or move and attack, or do halfway, you just end up really caring about where people are positioned, down to the point where it's like we're spaced here for a reason, right? Because right where they're at, he can't get a little bit farther in. He's just going to sit there and attack Guts in his Berserker armor. More on that later. And so, but I'm still within 3, so I can still do Guts style. So we're like strategically pointing ourselves to this in like a mini chess game that is just a lot of fun, right? So yeah, very, very cool. Loved that. Okay, so positioning, super important. All right, I kind of mentioned this in the explanation because it didn't take a long time, but combat is very quick. You see how many dice you have? Maybe you have a minus here, maybe you have a plus. You do have to remember that. So for instance, he has self-confidence where he gains a yellow die. I just need to know that. But I'm playing the character, I know that he gets that. But then he also gets his worst die removed from his fatigue. So he really doesn't get that. So I just don't even count it now, right? Either way, you might get some things like that, right? Or, hey, I get to take 2 from your dice pool that you had. You had 2 there, then I'm having these 2 as well, right? But once you do that, you roll, you count the successes, you compare it to the defense, you're done. That's how much damage it was. It's as simple as that. And I think that is really, really nice. What I don't like, I'm fine with the build up on building the dice pool, but once I roll those dice, I don't want to then like figure out what happened, mainly because to me, rolling dice is a moment of excitement in a board game. It's exactly why people like dice. It's the chance, it's the randomness. It's okay, I need to do 8 damage because he has 4 defense, so I just need to do 4 more damage and then he's dead. So that's what I need to do. And then you roll the dice and you instantly know if you did it or not. I much prefer that. All the game mechanics around that, for the most part, there is some reroll, but again, that's me actively engaging in it. I think that's fine too, right? Because you're like, oh no, almost, I'm gonna reroll the red. I think I can get a 3 on that, right? So you do that sort of thing. But all of the like manipulating the pool and figuring out where things come from happens before. And I that's my preference strongly, because in my opinion, dice, unless the mechanic is like you're flipping things, and that's like part of like a really big focus on the game, it just needs to be quick after those dice are rolled. I don't want to fuss with it too much, and then because it gets rid of all the excitement. You're like, okay, all right, and then I guess I can spend this to then do this, and then you're like, again, you're trying to solve a puzzle when I just want to be excited or not, or like, oh, that works too. So yeah, dice combat, quick, efficient, love it. All right, real quick, let's talk about fatigue a little bit, because this is a big part of the game, bigger than you might know. Okay, so you have a fatigue system here. I'll hold this one up again. All right, so you have a fatigue system here. You start at 0, you go to KO, right? Based off how many cards you play, you are losing fatigue or gaining fatigue, I guess, until you eventually KO, and you get debuffed over time. I do like thematically having this almost be the opposite of like an Into the Unknown game, like Trespass Odyssey or something like that, right? Where like you are kind of slowing down. And again, I can see the similarities between this and something like Conan, where if you use all your skills or your gems, well then you can't use them for like as much defense. Or if you get hurt, you lose that, and that makes it to where now you don't have the ability to do as much, right? Same kind of thing here. You start to weaken. Now, different characters are different. Each one of these are unique. Some lose less often, but double the amount. Some lose more offense, some more defense, some more movement, all that kind of stuff. So it's all kind of unique there. I believe they're all to 24 as far as I can tell, at least from my section here. This is kind of a ticking time bomb. There is a round kind of counter, and for instance, in this scenario, I'll talk about the scenario and events in a moment. We essentially, I believe, had to go to round 9. I don't know. There was a one I had to flip at 9. We didn't quite get there, so I won. Good on us. But I think it would have been a fail. So we had about 9 rounds, but that actually wasn't too bad. What was really, that was tight, but what was really kind of tough is managing this fatigue system. And the reason is because obviously you always want to go all in, right? Because it actually increases your attack and defense. Unlike in Conan, where if you're not going super hard, it's because you can actually be more defensive. Here, to be more defensive, you kind of have to go hard as well. No matter what, you're losing a lot of fatigue, whether it's a lot of attack or a lot of defense. That's one of the big differences here between this and some other systems that have played with this idea. Now, that being said, the reason I found that to be kind of a ticking time bomb is because most characters can't gain fatigue back. There's just no way. Notice I didn't mention items or equipment or anything like that, right? Your tools are your cards. And so you can kind of think of those as these. For instance, I have a miniature bomb that I can throw. That's just one of his abilities that either he gains or can upgrade or whatever, right? But I didn't have to go pick up a bomb or equip a bomb or anything like that. Additionally, he has one card that allows him to gain some fatigue. Neither Guts nor Shirky here, or Shirk, or what? Again, I apologize for the name. I'm just reading it. I don't know what to say in my head. Cannot gain back any fatigue. So what they lose is what they lose. So it is a permanent kind of death spiral that you're heading towards the more and more you do. There is an exception here. For instance, this person here does have a card that allows them to essentially heal somebody else of fatigue. This person here, they're kind of like attached to the hip. He has an ability that gets him near her, and then she gains fatigue back. So she has a way to get fatigue as long as he's in play. But if both of them are out of play, then Guts and Sherrick here, again, I apologize. I'm sure I'm butchering the name. I'm going to try to avoid it just because I know it's going to give you an eye twitch if you know the proper way to do it. And I'm sure it's wrong, what I'm saying. Have no way of doing that. He can recover a little bit of his own with one specific card, and that's it. So fatigue is definitely something that you should expect to continue to get lower. You're not going to be topped off. It's not like health where you're just going to like hopefully get it to the tippy top. Which I guess kind of leads me to another comment. Now, this is not a pro or a negative. I guess I would lean towards a pro based off the theme and the style. But just so you know, there is not like a way to really defend against all attack and not get damage. It is very easy to get, what is it, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 damage. I don't know if even in the final game you could ever get 18 defense. It'd be really tough. You'd have to have a lot of buffs on you and pick just the cards for it. And even it just seems kind of odd, right? Not really a thing. The Berserker armor, slight exception. I'll get to that when I talk about the scenario. But you're going to be receiving damage, right? Now, Guts can heal himself a little bit. She can heal. He really can't heal at all, right? And so you kind of get that same thing where it really requires teamwork and enough people playing or playing with the smart characters, right? It doesn't go to a 2-player. It's 3-player minimum, right? But I guess you could probably pick, and it suggests ones too, right? But if you picked him, for instance, instead of her, I don't think you'd really have any way to heal health at all. Again, so he could maybe do a little bit of fatigue, he could do a little bit of health for themselves, and that's it, right? So you could play kind of dumb or not have an ideal team or something like that. Really, it assumes that everybody's there and participating, right? Hopefully that makes sense. But either way, you're going to get hurt. You're not going to be at max health. Guts, he doesn't even want to be at max health. So there's that too. I guess that's one more thing. When it comes to like gimping a playthrough or a character or something like that, I upgraded these because this took place in kind of the middle of the campaign. I kind of upgraded them ignorant of the actual game, and that I've read the rules, but even still haven't played it, right? And one thing I noticed, and I went back and kind of looked, you could theoretically pick poor choices and get into kind of a crummy situation. Let me try and explain that a little bit. You could make it to where every card you upgrade has less movement, right? Guts, for instance, I upgraded several of his things that actually, like, he didn't gain a lot of movement, and so Deadly Charge, where you have to kind of move 4 or more, was really hard for that version of Guts to do, right? Just because of how he was leveled up, the buffs he was getting, it just didn't make a lot of sense, right? And in fact, you could even do something like upgrade Deadly Charge without really having the movement to use Deadly Charge, in which case it's kind of a muted upgrade, right? So you can get yourself into that kind of situation a little bit. Where it just kind of makes it a little bit harder. You could do the same with defense or something like that, right? It's not a huge amount, but between maybe picking unideal, which again, they do suggest combinations, groups, or having it to where like, you end up where, oh yeah, I forgot movement's a thing, right? Or this scenario requires a lot of movement because we got to go all the way to the other side and I'm just a slow character. You can maybe not be quite as strong as you could otherwise, right? I don't think you can do it really, really bad, but I did notice there's probably some variants. I bet you can have a good build and a not so good build. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, speaking of the group, this is up to a 5-player game. So again, you could play with these 3 plus these 2. I think that's awesome. I love the fact that it supports 5. Most of these kind of games typically do 4, right? So if you're one of those people who have the group where there is that 5th person, this is actually viable. That being said, it plays just fine at 3 and 4, though I will say it's probably a bit better playing all of them. The health is more, but at the same time, you just have that many more options and interactions. So if you can play with more of that, that's great. Now, I know there is a solo mode that they've advertised on their Game Found now, right? And I'm recording this obviously before the campaign goes live, okay? But, and it looks great. It's actually from the part of the story I've read, right? So really early on. And that's awesome. I think it looks cool and adds a whole nother faction and campaign and stuff like that. You could easily dual hand this though too. Like I actually tested it out and I had no problem playing multiple characters. Could you play all 5? I think you could. I know everybody's different on whether or not they want a multi-hand or not, but you're not like drawing cards that are unknown where you have to then like read the new card that you get all the time. You kind of have the cards that you do. And because of that, you just kind of get generally, I know what my cards are. And then I'm just having to pick between that. And I know what my cards are here. And because of that, I think you can multi-hand quite well, right? So I don't think there's really an issue with that. Additionally, there's not a lot of finickiness with the game board where you're having to do a lot of updates where that could be a chore. So between the light upkeep and the fact that there are no random draws of cards, I had no problem using more than one character, and I imagine you could extend that out at least to 3 and do the minimum of 3 and play this solo. I think that's actually possible. Again, if you're okay for something like that, but most solo players, I think typically are, right? But if not, they got a solo mode too. So there's that, I guess. All right, and before I move on from like multi-handing and having multiple people here and all that, can I just say how awesome it is to play a game like this that plays like this and yet doesn't have an overload of tokens? You have a couple defense, you have a couple bleeds, you have your wound tokens, and then you have some tokens on the board for like spawn points or interactions, stuff like that. And that's just about it. You could technically count maybe some of these cubes or something like that. It's a fairly light game in that sense. They don't have 32 different status effects. Right? You don't have to worry about that. You're either stunning them or you're making them bleed. And that's pretty much what Berserk is anyway. So I think that makes sense. So I think it's thematically on par too. But yeah, you're not doing a whole lot of that kind of stuff. And that means that it plays super smooth. There isn't a single time where I feel like I had to update too many things. The most you're doing is like a stun and some damage, in which case I have them right next to each other. They're updated, so it's fine. And again, I'm not even adding a whole bunch of different stuns. It's one stun token I'm adding. Now, you could apply that multiple times from different people, but it's not a huge deal, right? So yeah, light token and table space. Like I already kind of mentioned that, but it all fits on this table quite well. No problem at all. This is something that I think I could get to the table quite easily and even keep here, put a lid on it, right? Maybe some guys are a little too tall, but yeah, honestly, not a slog of a setup, which is really, really nice. All right, lastly, we talked about table presence a little bit, but can I just say that this game looks amazing? The miniatures, obviously fantastic, like really, really good miniatures. Again, these are like final production plastic here, right? This is like the real deal. Like I said, it's pretty much finalized in that sense. So a lot of these, yeah, this is just how the game's gonna look. These are the miniatures that you're getting. And a lot of these aren't even like the upgraded version of them, right? So they have like cool other sculpting that you can get. Just very, very nice. I think it looks great. I don't have him with his wings on right now, right? He has like these giant wings that he can also do that are really cool. Yeah, I think it looks great. The art that they use, fantastic. I love it. It's there on your game board. It's right here on the cards. Looking at it is a pleasure. It's directly right out of the manga, and it looks awesome. It's nice and crisp. It looks exactly how you would expect it. Even like the back of the card, again, it just looks great. The coloration, I think, just looks really good as well. It's like, I don't know how you would call it, right? But it's fairly clean. You have like, a victory card or a defeat card, right? I didn't get defeated, so I had to look it up. Red and green, right? Very kind of crisp. There's some art there that you get, right? The ally cards and enemy cards, again, look fantastic. Yeah, we had this guy. He didn't last long, the Skull Knight. He killed one guy and then got stomped by these two. Oopsies. I would play better probably by the time I normally got into this. But, I mean, they look great. They're really, really good minis. Art looks fantastic. Style is there. It's just a good-looking game. As far as I'm concerned, at least. I think it looks great. Honestly, the only other game almost comparable to this, for me, style-wise, isn't actually Conan, though Conan kind of gets close to that. I would say Hate the board game by Kaban, if you remember that one, or if you still have it. Kind of gets similar vibes there. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. I think it looks great. All right. This is something I almost wish I would have shared sooner, but at the same time, I wanted to kind of rapid fire a few of those off. The characters are all extremely different, and I really appreciate that. There are a lot of games where the characters you're not really doing different things, right? In other words, every character and every card or every ability, no matter what, is just kind of like manipulating the same kind of mechanic, if that makes sense. Yet these, because of the abilities, play so different. So this is the same for all of them, right? They all get those dice, they all get that movement, they all get that defense, right? But with each character ability on these cards being so different, that really adds a lot. So I'm not even going to their board yet. I'll get to that, right? So I mentioned, for instance, Isidro here, he is like super confident as he gets confident. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But for just his cards, right, he's doing things like Tumbling Strike, where it says miniatures do not block your movement during this activation. If you move onto space adjacent to an enemy, the enemy suffers 1 wound once per space. So you can just literally tumble through them and like cut them as you're going, right? I told you he has like a miniature bomb, so he can just like throw an explosive. He can also throw a stone. So he has 2 ranged attacks that are instants that go away, but then he has reloading, so he can actually get these back. So he can, like every other turn or whatever, he can kind of be a ranged character, or at least have those multiple times. Again, kind of like having multiple items almost, right? Additionally, he has several things that are kind of like a flaunting or a guessing or a gambling mechanic, right? So the double or nothing, right? This one says, well, I read you the display of skill before, right? Where you pick a number, and if that number comes up, you double it. So you're trying to guess what number is the most. Double or nothing says, before the activation phase, designate a visible enemy within range 5. If you kill that enemy during your activation, you gain 1 additional confidence point. Otherwise, you lose a point. So you can be like, I'm going to kill that guy. And if I don't, I actually lose confidence. I'll explain confidence in a moment. But if I win, I actually double it. So you kind of get that little kind of gambling kind of attitude here. And then he has cards like this. The Guts style, already mentioned. If he's within 3 of Guts and he's activated, he gets extra die. Or Best Arrival. If Shirke is, sorry, I said it again, is within range 2, gain 2 confidence points, but then afterwards lose the 2 confidence points. So depending on his position, again, positioning matters. Again, near people, he plays differently. The other characters don't really play that way. These two have a little bit of a pairing, but not in the same way as that at all. He can like almost teleport to her and stuff, right? Whereas for her, again, she's like has this astral pool and she's like flinging spells. She has this one like beam wave that's like infinite, that's just like line of sight to an obstacle, and she can even pump that up to then be like 3 hexagons wide, and it just deletes things, right? So very cool there. She has stuff that just kind of like explodes outwardly to everything adjacent, right? She's moving a lot more, so she has a lot of that kind of stuff. She can heal. For Guts, he's over there again doing his charging swipe or being adjacent to people and then dividing all of his movement and stuff like that. So he's doing some that like hurt him, but then he gains the black die. The black die is the best one. It's a 50-50, either blank or 6s, right? So again, kind of that like all or nothing Berserker style thing. Combine just their different abilities on the things they can do from their cards with their abilities here. So let's move on to that. So I kind of mentioned this astral ability, right? You can gain cubes in the astral pool, and then most of these have a little astral underneath it, right? Each cube spent applies this effect to another additional hero. So thought transference gives you other people a reroll and a movement, one person. But I can spend astral points to add more to that. Or I could go to Circle of Destruction, and each cube spin adds yellow to your dice attack pool. And by the way, these upgrades can sometimes change as well. Or you can maybe get it to where there's more range in your bolt, right? So she's kind of gaining this like mana pool, essentially, or astral pool, that then she gets to use to buff her abilities more. Isidro, like was kind of mentioned, he has what this, I'm going to take these trackers off here. He has this whole thing here that's different. This confidence starts at 0. After every time he kills someone, he gains a confidence. Again, or double if you do the double or nothing and call it out, right? And he gains buffs from that. So his first one, he gains a reroll. His next one, he gains a new yellow cube. And again, those are permanent. He just keeps adding those. Third one, nothing. But if he does a fourth one, he gets an extra movement, another reroll. So the more confident he gets by killing people, the stronger he is. He's actually better because he gains that confidence both by being around people and by killing people. That sort of narrative tie-in is super cool mechanically, and it makes them all feel different. Guts over there, it pretty simple. The more hurt he is, the stronger he gets, right? That's kind of his thing. And like I said, they're all like that, right? They all have different abilities. Like I said, he can help kind of move over there, and he's like a duelist. He actually is like rolling also a lot of yellow dice, but it kind of all adds up. And so it's like, oh, you either like hit or you don't, and stuff like that. So again, all very different. Some of it depends on if you're near a demon or not, and which character you are. It's just really cool to see them all play so different. I really enjoy that. I love it when the choice of character really matters, and you can connect with them from a thematic level, from a narrative level, from a mechanical level, and it all ties together. Really, really cool. Okay, so I already mentioned, again, allies, they're really, really cool too, but the way the allies come into play is very neat. For instance, we started with Skull Knight here. I imagine that's narrative from the campaign. He's now joined us, at least temporarily. So he, for now, is our companion here, our ally here. These guys, these little golem guys, they came from an event. So let's talk about the scenario that I got to play. Okay, so the story of this one is essentially the witch lady here is actually the like a mistress teacher lady of our little witch here. And we like left and went and dealt with like some like wall of like bodies or something like that, right? And then we come back, but as we come back, we notice, holy crap, they're being under attack by 2 different demons' armies, and it's being ransacked. You see like smoke or whatever. So you kind of like appear here, and there's like just kind of enemies around, right? And so your idea is you need to essentially see what's going on. You don't actually have this is super cool. You don't actually have like in a lot of scenarios you have this little blurb at the beginning that says stuff like, you know, hey, here's all the different rules and set all this up and set all this aside. No, you have a face down event deck, and you start with like the first one. So for instance, this one just says they're attacking the house. It says what's going on, and then it lists other things. If Zod is killed, reveal event card 6F. If Grunbild is killed, reveal event card 6G. During the event phase of turn 1, reveal event card of 6B. If the interaction token is activated, reveal event card 6D. And if all heroes are incapacitated or during the event phase of turn 9, reveal event card 6-1. That's information you get. You have no idea what happens when you do those. I'm going to go ahead and explain it and spoil this one scenario. Again, it's from the prototype. All the other people who are reviewing this or have been able to play this have probably played the same thing, right? If you're at an event or anything like that. So, but this will give you a good idea of the kinds of things you can anticipate. Okay, so we're there. There's some enemies here. At the time, these guys are not here, so a little bit of a spoiler there, right? So instead, it's this version of them, right? And it starts like kind of over here, right? Is where they're at. Plus their enemies and stuff. And as we're going through, we know what will kind of trigger it. We know some of it is based off of just how far we are in there. Things are going to happen whether we're doing things or not, right? And then the other is based on whether or not they die and we do the interactions. We know those are kind of the things we're looking at, right? And it looks like we probably have around 9 turns. So there's an interaction token we probably need to get to, and we need to kill those guys. Okay, so what we end up doing is we go and we charge and we go to kill this guy, right? And we kill him. And he spawns into this. Oh, he's like awakened. He like loved it. He's like, oh, that's awesome. And the moment he spawned, he like ran over and like attacked us, right? Replaced his card. He got all buffed up, right? And we're like, okay, that's crazy. Let's check this interaction token. So one of us beelines to the interaction token and get that. We go to that, reveal the card. It was the Berserker armor. So now Guts now has his Berserker armor. So we reveal the event card, right? And this has a Berserker armor. This is what changed for him in this. For the remainder of this adventure, if Guts would lose more than 1 health point, he only loses 1 health point instead. No matter how much damage has hit him, 1 health point. That's it. He ignores penalties related to his fatigue points. It doesn't matter how fatigued he gets, as long as he doesn't KO, he's going. And in fact, debatable on that. Again, there's still a little bit of like, okay, is the KO a penalty? I voted no, because the penalties, how they talk about it, doesn't mention the KO, mentions the things. But either way, maybe clarify a little bit. Not a big deal. He gains 1 reroll at the start of his activation. He can now just actually attack better. And he loses 1 health point at the end of each hero turn. So once all the hero turns done, boom, another health point. Again, ticking time bomb here. And he cannot gain health points. So he is in true Berserker mode here. All attack, doesn't matter. Only 1 damage, which means he can face tank this guy and take 1 damage. But he's going to take 1 damage from the attack and then one damage from that. Plus he has abilities that can also still deal him damage, right? So you still got to watch him at the same time. Completely changed how he was interacting, right? Very, very cool. Okay, so then that happens. We're like, okay, crazy, right? So then, of course, while that happens, there's a big spawn point. Another event happens. It was, again, this one was like after the 4, and people spawned, including like in the building, right? Another one of these guys spawned like right here on F, right? So like it's like, okay, now there's a whole bunch more guys. This isn't stopping. That guy's transformed. He's really big now. We got to see what the other event is because we haven't won this yet, right? So then we attack him, and sure enough, he transforms too. And now what it says on theirs is that essentially if each of them get below 50 health, right, for a 3-player starts at 70, then reveal another event card. And essentially that was the winning situation here. We weren't going to be able to kill him, and honestly, we were going to run out of fatigue or rounds or both, right? It was like rough, but we got him down, and that's essentially what it says. Like, they're weakened and wounded, but definitely not killed, right? And then what goes on from there, I don't know. But that was the scenario. Honestly, it was a lot of fun. It was really cool. I liked okay, now it's spawning. I liked the fact that some of it's based off what we're doing. Some of it's based off of the round. I can see others based off of like a location more. There's all sorts of things that could trigger it off of because it dynamically lists for that scenario what they are. I like that I don't know all of them yet. It's not like right there in the rule book, right? Instead, it is unrevealed. So I don't know what that interaction token is. Maybe it's a trap. Maybe it's the winning situation. Maybe, that's where the witch is and then she joins. Maybe we find some Berserker armor. Who knows, right? Oh, also, after the first round, that's when all these guys spawned out, right? Turns out, oh no, she's since so then they all spawn around here, but they can only go so far away from it, right? So they're just kind of there. Yeah, honestly, I loved the events, the situations, the fact that this felt like playing through a story, which for a story as celebrated as Berserker, it makes sense. It makes sense that the Berserk board game would, in fact, be narratively rich like this. Just a lot of fun. Okay. All right, two last notes, minor, issues, I guess, or whatever. Not really, but something to note. These bigger guys, notice they have a round base, hex grid. If you've dealt with this before, you know what I'm about to say. It does really kind of suck because it's really hard to tell where they're at because they only half cover like the hexes, and then they're centered on one that you can't even see, right? So their footprint's a little hard to determine, and then especially with like movement, it's like, okay, so going halfway on that one is one, like you can do it, but it's just not as good. There are solutions to this, right? Like for instance, a lot of 3D print files will just put a little hex around this so you still have the footprint. Honestly, if I played this, that's probably what I'd do, is I'd just get one of those clam things. It's just easier, because yeah, sometimes that is a little odd to try and see, okay, what is he 2 from? I guess really that's a half, but we're not counting this. So that's 1 and then 2. So this is within 2 range for him, not here, right? So it's a minor inconvenience. It's whatever. The only other thing is, like I said, so the dice can go big or not, right? It's either a 6 or a 0, and you can get some re-rolls on that too, right? The higher they are, right, this can go up to a 4 or a 1, right? And so with that, you can get a little bit of a swingy combat. Now, it's not too bad in the sense that we didn't have any issues through our play session of it. So at least from my introduction here, it's fine. I've played plenty of other games like this, often with a higher dice count. It actually helps mitigate that a little bit because it normalizes itself, right? So as long as you're rolling a whole bunch of dice, you're not going to see those big, I did nothing, I did 6 damage kind of swings. But obviously that is still possible. I mentioned kind of the defense thing, but just know that, again, with dice at range that much, you can get kind of some high variance. Wasn't a big deal for me, but something to note. Just something to note in case you're sensitive to that. Final thoughts. It's a really fun game. I like it. You should get it. It's a good game. What else is there to say? Look, we had a blast with it. It was one of those things where even afterwards, even the next day, there were still comments about, oh, that was a really fun game. Oh, man, I really liked that game. Oh, I'm excited to see what else is about that game. I can promise you, I've played a lot of prototypes. They are not always getting that reaction, especially days afterwards. Just having it left here on the table has had us all kind of like, oh man, yeah, that was really fun. Oh, I really want to be able to do that again. Which I think is about as good of a review as you can provide. Everybody who played it had a great time with it. It's a lot of fun. It looks great. It honors IP seemingly extremely well, whether through the art, through the style, through the narrative, through the mechanics, through and through. This is Berserk, the board game. Nothing else about it. No subtitle. The board game, period. This is it. So if you like Berserk, obviously it's pretty much a no-brainer, right? If you just like games that have the card game like this, or that have the miniatures, or the narrative story, I still think it's a good win, especially if you actually like some of these. Again, it plays kind of like a dungeon crawler, but it doesn't have all these items and equipment and stuff like that too. Not that that's a bad thing. I think it actually plays great to its strength for that, actually, as kind of a more streamlined, nuanced style thing versus mechanically crunchy. But at the same time, it's because your actions and equipment are kind of all cards, right? Whether it's a bomb or a barrel roll, right? But that also makes it stand out from the crowd. So if you have a wall of board games and you have a whole bunch of those, I think this still kind of could find a spot on your shelf if that makes sense for you, right? Because it is a bit of a different style. It does have different options. It does have a solo option. It does have a one-off option. It does have the narrative option, of course. But it's not a huge footprint, at least on the table. And it plays really quick and easy. And it's a lot of fun. And it's cool. So yeah, anyway, that's my review. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Again, check out Into the AM. They have a sponsor. And of course, Berserk the board game, linked down in the description below. I'd love to hear your thoughts either on the game. If you have any questions about what I said, feel free to ask me. I'd love to answer them for you. Guys, have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye, guys.